Hello and welcome to the channel. Today you are joining me on a slightly grey and rainy evening in the South Wales valleys. We're out again in my Bach Half Tent, giving it another outing in some slightly different conditions, just to test how much condensation you can rack up in a single skin half tent, half bivvy type shelter. I realised on my first camp with this bivvy that it was described by one commenter as a windsock, so I appreciate it was on quite a breezy night, a lot of airflow through the bivvy, and that might have been why condensation wasn't an issue. So tonight there's a tiny bit of breeze around, there's a lot of moisture. It's been raining quite a lot this afternoon, so the ground is very wet, plenty of moisture in the air, and it is quite muggy and humid, so should be a good test of how much condensation you get inside, because it's not particularly warm either, so overnight it's going to get down to about 14-15 degrees, so I can have the half tent fully zipped up to keep as much warmth in as possible, which means it'll just be working on the front and rear vents to reduce that condensation. I've also got a jazzy new backpack, the Bach Molecule 30, which I'm really liking so far. Plenty of space in there for a little overnight, and plenty of room left over to stuff a lot more gear in as well, so I'll do a separate video on that backpack shortly. We're racing the rain at the moment, and the rain is just starting to win. It's caught up with me, so hopefully it won't be too heavy a shower and we can get the bivvy set up reasonably easily before it's too wet. But as I said previously, I reckon this is bivvy with just enough space for you to cram your gear inside whilst it's flat on the floor, then pitch with your bag safely dry inside, and you should be able to get inside, and not comfortably, but you should just be about to manage to get it set up with all your gear inside the tent, so get your sleep mat and all the rest of it. So we'll go and pitch in a usual spot where I've camped a couple of times recently, bit of nicely sheet mown grass and what is normally quite an overgrown common up here. Not too bad a view this evening, a bit different to usual, bit of low cloud cover, no chance of seeing the Brecon beacons, but yeah, a beautiful evening to force yourself out for a little camp. So some of these showers are catching us, some of them are scooting by, but it's a really nice light over there in the distance, and little bits of cloud drifting up through the valleys looks really, really nice. I've been up here quite a lot and I've never had sheep congregate around me like this. They're coming from all over the place to come and inspect me. They're just not leaving me alone. Every time I turn my back, they get closer and closer and closer. So with the rain starting to come in, and also the sheep, who are very, very close to the camera again, I'm going to try and find where I left the zips on this thing, and I'm going to chuck all of my gear inside the bivvy before I actually start to set up a pole and do all the rest of it, so everything can be chucked inside, keeping it all dry whilst I'm messing about getting it all set up. Now I could have just chucked the bag straight in there, but I'm making another video on the bag, so I showed myself emptying it, hence why everything is completely out of the bag. So that's all safely in the dry now, so I can zip up that outer zip and put the tent up without stressing about my gear, because it's all nicely inside and it's going to be dry. So there we are, nicely blended into the landscape, and you can see I've added these two extra guy lines, the two red ones at the top end, and I've done the same at the bottom as well. So there's 6 guy and out points now, just to give it a bit of extra rigidity and stability, not that you necessarily need it. But again, I'm impressed with the pack size of just shy of a kilo, or maybe just over a kilo. The weight and pack size, it is a big bivvy stroke half tent. plenty of height to it as well, and this time I'm pitched the other way, so the head end is pitched into the wind this time just because of the little slope on the grass, but it shouldn't really make any difference. But I can already feel how damp it is in the air and how damp the outer material feels. This has definitely been a much better test of condensation. And looking up at the sky, it's looking pretty nice in certain directions now, and then pretty rainy in other directions. I think we've actually been really lucky with avoiding most of the rain, and the sheep are still there. I think they must be very hungry and they must assume I'm a farmer with some food, but no, I'm just wearing a bright yellow jacket. I don't have any food at all. I do love this hill. I've been here a lot recently, but just trying to use as much gear as I can and test as much gear as I can, so it's very convenient to come here. So I'm hoping this will be a good test tonight of the material and whether it really works as a single skin tent, because they have got the Half Tent Pro on sale for about €250 plus postage, and then you got to pay import VAT as well. So it'll probably be near a sort of £290, maybe 260, 290, because you give an exchange rate of the pound versus the euro and stuff, and then 20% import you've got to pay on it. I don't know if that's just VAT you've got to pay, or you've got to pay duties as well. So the Pro version has the much more breathable fabric, which I've got on the Heads Up Bivvy Pro. But I wondered really whether, because of the height of this bivvy and the airflow, whether you can get away with just keeping this one here, because I don't really want to shout on the more expensive Pro version. Plus the Pro version's heavier as well, so this is a little bit lighter weight and more packable material. But the rain now is starting to come over, so I'm going to test whether you can get inside the tent and unpack and get your sleep mat and do all that in a civilised way. It's not going to be very civilised given how low it is, but I wonder if it is possible, because I wanted to know if this is a kind of shelter you could use in the rain. Now, it's not been out on the channel yet, but I've done my first video of the my tent series, so I've used my Nightcat ultralight trekking pole tent, which essentially is a Lanshan 1 Plus. Exactly the same location I pitched in, and the rain came in quite heavy as I was pitching it, so I just got the tent pitched, jumped inside, tons of interior space, able to completely get set up in the dry and do all of that. But it was quite cold with the full mesh inner, so yeah, it'd be interesting to compare the single skin tent to a trekking pole tent, because a trekking pole tent is pretty much exactly the same weight as this, but massively more spacious inside, but a very, very different kind of shelter. So yeah, as it's starting to rain, I'm going to try and get inside and just see whether I can set up whilst inside the bivvy. So this thing is a bit like a TARDIS, because it doesn't look that massive from the outside, but when you're actually in here, there's so much space. So I've got my shoes in on my sit mat, got my backpack up here, and I've got all my various other bits and pieces lounging around at the top there. And I've got quite decent headroom as well, so you can't sit up, but you can certainly sort of lean up. So yeah, now is a challenge to try and get everything out really, and get my self set up to sleep, and prove whether you can use this as just your kind of your rainy shelter as well. So again, not a massive amount of room to sit up, but not too shabby really, and the vents definitely play a good role. I've been looking at quite a lot of different bivvies recently, and so many of them kind of have a single hoop but no vent, so the back ones with a vent are very different. And I actually did snag myself the Black Diamond Spotlight bivvy in the same luminous yellow as this backpack I've just bought as well. So I got that on eBay for about 70 quid, including postage and bioprotection and stuff, so it's about a couple £100 new, so they've got really good, only been used once, so looking forward to trying that bivvy out, much lighter, about 600 grams, so that should be interesting, but hasn't got any kind of vent like this one. So yeah, you can see it's pretty decent, because it's a single skin, you don't lose any height of the exterior and stuff. So yeah, it is a really cool half tent, this thing. Well, that's the sleep mat done, so that wasn't too bad actually. I was able to inflate it and then just sort of move to one side and get it in position and hop onto it, so that was fine. I have got a quilt, so that's going to be much more difficult to kind of do the strapping underneath it and stuff, so might just have to just chuck it over the top. It's quite warm anyway, so it should be fine just like that. So in that sense, a quilt's quite easy if you just chuck it over the top of yourself, but if you wanted to sort of do the bottom cinched up and do the rest of it, that's going to be slightly trickier to achieve. The material is getting slightly wet on the inside already, a little bit of condensation forming, because obviously I'm slightly damp, some of my gear is slightly damp, and the rain is very much forming on the outside now and making the material quite cold as well. It's also worth pointing out that I've not seam sealed this tent either, so it does have a large seam running down the whole length of the tent, and that's obviously designed to give it a bit of rigidity along the longest bit of the tent. But apparently it doesn't really need to be seam sealed. I think the water soaks into the fabric and it expands and is sort of doubled up on the seams as well, so not sealed but the material is doubled over, so we'll see if that does work to keep me dry all night. It shouldn't rain that much, but it's certainly a different test for the little tardis tonight, having a bit of rain on it. And so far I'm absolutely comfortable with pitching it, so you can literally get out your bag, chuck it on the ground, stick 1 or 2 pegs in it just to keep it down if it's windy, unzip it, chuck all your gear inside, zip it back up, everything's dry and safe. You can then be outside messing about, putting the poles in, pegs in, getting it set up, and then you can definitely get inside and you can get your sleep mat set up, you can organise all your gear in really a fair bit of comfort. It's much bigger than it looks. I'm even able to sort of do a bit of filming inside despite the fact that it's, essentially it's a bivvy, it's a single skin little half tent, so really impressed so far with this piece of kit. So there's the sleeping bag out, and you can see a bit blustery, and I could probably pitch a tent slightly better. So you're going to get the material hitting the sleeping bag occasionally, I think, certainly in this sort of side section up here. So you are going to get some water transferring onto your sleeping bag, because there's definitely condensation forming now. But you can see there's still quite a lot of space above the foot section. So it's not the worst thing in the world. I'd be really interested to see how the Pro version performs in terms of condensation compared to this one. But I doubt I'm going to buy that one, but it would be really interesting to know the difference, and I can try and work out roughly the difference using my Heads Up Bivy Pro, but it's not quite the same as having it on this half tent with the higher clearance and more vents. But no, I was able to get set up in the rain without any issues. That's the main thing, and I can always look at changing the pitch if I get back out the tent again, but no, it's not too bad. Well, as it's getting dark, I will leave it there for this evening, but we'll come back in the morning and we'll see just how comfortable and dry the night has been. So I've got a down quilt with me, so obviously that's more susceptible to getting damp than a synthetic one, but it's also a lot more packable, so I went for the smallest pack size tonight rather than bring my synthetic bag. But I'm hoping it shouldn't touch the outside too much and shouldn't get too much water, and it's obviously hydrophobic and all the rest of it, so it should resist a little bit of dampness that comes in through the tent. Anyway, we'll find out just how we get on in the morning, so I'll catch up with you then. Well, we had a fair bit of rain overnight, mist, fog, bit of wind at times. It's a bit calmer now and it stopped raining, but there's a lot of condensation on the inside. So the 2 vents haven't prevented the build-up of condensation. Obviously that happened last night pretty quick after getting inside the half tent. But because of the space internally, haven't really made much contact with it. I think my sleeping bag's a little bit damp in places just from catching the side wall, but the bottom of the sleeping bag, my feet and stuff, that's all dry because there's loads and loads of space in the foot box to avoid touching it. And at the head end as well, there's plenty of space here to avoid that, and there's obviously mesh from the vent above your head as well. So yeah, it definitely gets condensation despite the 2 vents. Conditions like last night, damp, water everywhere. Some of my gear when I bought it inside the tent, like the shoes and stuff and bag, were a bit damp as well. So yeah, you definitely get condensation, but the additional height makes it not such an issue as a traditional bivvy.
And the one thing I didn't bring was an additional peg for this stupid door, or 2 pegs really. The design on this tie back is just absolutely useless and completely inadequate, which for a shelter with an RRP of £420 is not really good enough, to be honest. One of the upsides to coming out in different conditions like this is you get different skies to look at. So South Wales valleys bathed in some little speckles of sunlight, some low cloud. Really, really nice view from up here. You can see some of the higher points over there, Mynyddoth May, Mynyddoth Winglas, a little bit buried in cloud. But this hill, about 380 metres, is cloud-free, and the views are extensive. Well, the sheep are somewhere else this morning, so I can hear them in the distance, but they're not bothering me so much. But I slept pretty well. It's nice and warm in there. The Ember EB1 was really toasty warm. Didn't need to use it as a proper quilt underneath the sleep mat or anything. It was really, really nice. So I wouldn't have asked because I was using the Nemo, the higher insulated sleep mat as well. Made a bit of a difference, but perfectly comfortable in there. And yeah, it sits in the landscape pretty well. So definitely a lot of condensation inside, but the height made that not so much of an issue. So yeah, I could definitely use this as a bad weather shelter. Not saying it'd be my first choice, but if I was packing light and wanted to use this on a long hike, it wouldn't bother me if it was going to be raining when I got there, because I've sort of shown that I can get set up inside perfectly easily and keep all my stuff, including my shoes, in there as well. So yeah, a really decent flexible little shelter, and it's still on sale for 170 odd quid, so I do think for 170 quid it's pretty good value in terms of the quality, the size, the low weight and pack size and stuff, and it's certainly something a bit different from your normal bivvies or your normal tents. My friends are back. Come to say good morning to me. Don't know why they're so hungry or so interested in me. I feel a bit like the Pied Piper of sheep. I can barely hear myself think with them barring away at me. Now, as you can see from the little time lapse, it's an easy setup to pack away. Stuff's back in its stuff sack really, really easily. And what I'll probably do in the longer run is just find the right size dry bag for it, so it'll pack down a lot smaller than it does in the kind of storage bag. But no, it was a good purchase, good little bit of kit. So I think I'm going to prefer that over some of my little one-man tent, which we'll be using in the next few weeks, just because it's easy to set up and pack away compared to a double skin tent. And because it's single skin, there's no wasted space inside. So with a double skin tent, you end up with perhaps the complexity of pitching the 2 layers, and then the interior space is nowhere near as big because obviously the outer is a certain size, but then you've got the gap between that and the inner and stuff, so it's not as big as it looks inside and it's more difficult. So I think I'll be probably selling some of my single person tents in favour of keeping the half tent and using that instead, just because it's really easy and stuff. And on a dry night with a bit of breeze and stuff, and you can open up the mesh door, condensation really isn't an issue then. I think last night was about really as bad as it gets in terms of moisture in the air and on my gear and stuff. So I'm perfectly happy that I can sleep in camp comfortably with that level of condensation and not be a major issue. And the views seem to be opening up a bit more now as it clears up a little bit. Should be a nice day ahead. Perfect morning to be out and about. Well, it's only a very quick overnight camp, so I think I'm pretty much done now. I've done what I wanted to do. Tested the new backpack a little bit. Tested the half tent in some different conditions, and yep, it's definitely a keeper for me. So I am in the background working on my series of videos on my tents and stuff. So I've already shot one on the Lan Shan 1 Plus, the nightcap version. Really good little tent, and I'll try and get out in the Lanshan 2 Pro soon, and once I've got a couple of those videos ready, then I'll start releasing them in due course. And the good thing is the farmer up here has been very generous and has mowed a few different sections of the hill, so there's tons of places to pitch. Actually, this mown grass in here is better than where I pitched last night, because sheep don't seem to like this part of the hill, so it's not covered in sheep muck, whereas the place I stayed last night is sheep mown grass covered in sheep muck. So I may well come up to this section next time, but I'm hoping to do a few more interesting camps up in some different places in the Brecon Beacon, so hopefully I'll find time to do that and give my local hill a break. Anyway, as always, if you've made it to the end of the video, congratulations on your endurance and thank you very much, and hope it's been reasonably interesting and enjoyable. And yeah, if you're not subscribed to the channel, then do subscribe if you're interested in seeing more of either the yellow backpack or the half tent, or you want to see the rest of my tent in the next few weeks. And yes, hopefully I will see you in the Banner Bekenyog soon. Thanks for watching.